Hi everyone, I'm going to walk you through setting up Project 1 for CIS 163. Now of course we'll spend some time doing this during lecture or lab in the first week of class, but for those of you who want to get started early or just like having that reminder at home, I hope you find the video helpful. Now notice I'm here and about to log into the EOS lab. You're certainly welcome to work on these assignments on any machine you like, but realize that we can only logistically support the EOS and Arch lab. There's just not a reasonable way for us to be familiar enough with every student's individual machine to be able to help you debug that. So if everything works nicely on your machine, by all means use that. But if you run into problems and you're not really getting a quick resolution, then you just have to fall back to our supported infrastructure here in EOS and Arch. So I'll start by logging in here. And then I'm going to log into the EOS RDP. And by going to the RDP link here, I will get a GUI environment. It'll look as if I were sitting right at an EOS machine in the lab. If I went instead to the SSH link here, then I would have a text-only window. And that's not going to work because I'm going to want to run an IDE. So I'll go to that RDP. And now it does look literally as if I'm sitting in the EOS lab. And I'll have to put my name and password in again. Now the first thing I'll do is launch a web browser and go to the course's webpage and navigate down to Project 1. And then the next thing, if you don't already have a public-private key pair set up and uploaded to GitHub, you'll want to do that now. What that does is it lets you interact with GitHub without having to put your password in all the time. And since you'll be doing a lot of GitHub and a lot of programming between now and the time you graduate, you might as well take a few minutes now and get that set up and save you a lot of password typing over the next 2 or 3, 4 years. And so if you don't know how to do that, this link here will take you to a video to show you how to get that all set up. Once you get that set up, then what you want to do is follow this link here to the GitHub Classroom page. If you're not already logged into GitHub, you'll probably get redirected to a login page. Once you do that, you'll end up at a page that looks something like this that asks you to accept the assignment. So when you click the Accept the Assignment button, what will happen is GitHub will create a new repository for you to do the project in. Now you notice it says it might take a couple of minutes. So, take a deep breath and then refresh the page. And what you'll see is the URL for your personal repo for this project. So if we follow that, you're looking at a standard GitHub repository page with all of the starter code for the project in it. So then what you do next is you clone the repository so you have a local workspace. So under this green code button, what you want is the SSH URL. Now you could use the HTTPS URL, but that's the one that'll make you log in all the time. So now that you have a public-private key pair, it's a lot easier just to use the SSH URL. So I'll put that on my clipboard and then come back over to my terminal. And then the command is git clone, and then I will paste that URL in there, and I'll get a local copy of the assignment code. Now we can see all of the files from the repo, the library, the source, the test. And so I could at this point just do this assignment using the command line and a simple text editor like VI, right? I could go into the source directory and run VI. And there's the code, and I could edit the code and do the project that way. However, just about any time somebody in the professional world writes code, they are using a nicer IDE. Those IDEs have all sorts of tools that make it easier and faster to write code, and now is the perfect time to start learning that. If you invest some time learning a good IDE now, then you get to benefit from that as you finish your assignments and all of your other courses while you finish your degree here at Grand Valley. Now I'm going to use Visual Studio Code. VS Code is just one of many good IDEs, and if you have a favorite professional IDE, there's no reason not to continue using that. About the only thing I'm going to tell you not to use is BlueJ. BlueJ is not a professional IDE, it's a training tool. And now that you've been trained, it's time to switch to a more professional tool. Now, I use VS Code because I find that it feels very lightweight. I had been using IntelliJ for many years, and it really just bogged down my computer. It felt so slow, the fans were always running because IntelliJ was just hogging the CPU cycles and hogging memory. Now, if you already know IntelliJ and you like it, by all means continue using it. But I'm going to show you VS Code here because that's what's been working for me. So to launch VS Code, we just type code and then go to File, Open Folder. The folder part is important. Navigate to the folder containing the project and hit OK. And there you can see the different pieces of code. In the source directory is the source code you're going to write. In the test directory is where the tests go. Now, if this is your first time using Visual Studio Code, it'll probably ask you to install some plugins. That's just the way VS Code works. It works on the plugin model, so as you work in different languages, you install different plugins for that language. So don't be intimidated by that if you're using it for the first time. And once you get the plugins installed, then you can edit your code. Now, if you go over here to test and you look at the test code, that starter code I've set up for you, notice here under the annotations, actually let me go up to a simpler one. Under the annotations here, you'll see this line that says run test and debug test. Notice that that's not part of the code. See, it doesn't have a line number over here. VS Code has put that in there for you so that when you want to run the test, you just click on the run test or debug test link. And if it fails, a window will pop up and tell you which test has failed. And it should be that simple. Now, glitches do happen, but I'm optimistic that it will be that easy for you to get started. And at this point, you just need to continue on, brainstorm your test, write your different tests here in the date163 file. And once you have a complete set of tests, then you start making those tests pass by implementing the source code. Okay, so after you've made changes to your code, it's time to commit that code to GitHub and then run the automated tests. So say, for example, I implemented is leap here. Then I want to commit that change. Now, there are ways of using Git directly through VS Code. And I actually don't know what they are. That's just not the workflow that I've come to use. I tend to come down to the terminal and just use the regular Git commands. If you're already comfortable using Git through your IDE, that's fine. I'm going to, from the terminal, do a git add, and then a git commit, and then a git push. This is what sends all of those changes up to the repository. So now to run the automated tests, I need to go back to my GitHub web page. Okay, so now you can see we have 2 commits here, and that there were changes made to the source directory 3 minutes ago. That's what we just pushed. So now we want to run the automated test. So to do that, you hit the Actions button, and then the GitHub Classroom Workflow button, and then go to Run Workflows, and then assuming you haven't changed your branch, you just hit the Run Workflow. And it may take 3 or 4 seconds, but eventually you should see that that workflow is being processed. It's downloading the code it needs to download, compiling your code, and it will run the tests. Now, normally what you would do at this point is just wait for that yellow dot to turn red or green, but I'm going to play a bit and we can watch it run. And there you can see the tests that are passing and failing. And there are a lot of them. So this text scrolling by isn't going to make a whole lot of sense, and it's not supposed to. The automated tests are just a thumbs up or a thumbs down. And if your tests pass and these tests fail, then there's something missing in your tests, and we need to work on figuring out what that is. This isn't going to tell you. Now, the reason you have to launch these tests by hand is so that I can tell if you decide to beat on the autograder. So what I've seen students do before is just do commit after commit after commit, just hoping that the test will pass. And that's not what we're trying to teach in this course. So you need to be judicious when you're running those automated tests. And if I see a lot of reruns of the automated tests without any updates to your test files, then I'll know you're not following the directions. I hope this helps you get started and moving along. And certainly if you run into any trouble, let me know by posting to Piazza, and me or one of your classmates will get back to you as soon as possible. Have fun.